Got my coffee.
Yeah, I want to see Weir. Come on, Weir. We see Weir.
Yeah, I want to see what retirement looks like.
Not quite as scruffy as not being on TV.
What did you say, buddy? Yeah, I'm still.
Good morning. We're gonna start.
Tim, have everybody shut off their cameras. Make sure we got all our guests signing in to shut their cameras off.
Everybody heard that. All right. So it doesn't really bother me, but yep. Shut off your cameras. Boss told us. And mute yourselves. And good morning. Is this the best winter for model mayhem, meteorological madness, a forecast discussion with 4 to 6 meteorologists in attendance that all went to college together? We didn't know each other until we got to Linden State College. But when we met each other, we all shared the passion we had when we were young of weather and how unpredictable weather is and how extreme weather is. And I think for me and most of us, we headed for the mountains because 1, we like to ski, we like to see storms. And 2, for me, it was a college fair at Cape Cod Community College, and the sign said meteorology. And I'm like, you can go to school for meteorology. I think most of us were sort of born with the passion. So I'd like to introduce the older people in the crowd first, age before beauty. Weir Lundstedt is right next to me. And I'll give a little brief history of my first impression of my friends. Weir, I just remember he always had his books. He was kind of going from the library kind of to the baseball field. He always kind of had a baseball glove. So I'd say he was the athlete of the crowd, and more on all of this later. I just remember Tony Petrarca running up and down Vale Hill. I don't know how he ever studied. He would run up and down Vale Hill, but he stopped when it got dark, and he came to the library with his notebook, which he had the colored notes. His notes were invaluable. We got take-home tests. Dr. Fingerhut loved that, didn't he? And we would just go up to the whiteboard, the chalkboard as we had in those days, and Tony would hand us the notes. Russ Murley, he and I were sitting with Cy brothers, and Russ always seemed to have earphones and a microphone. He was sort of like he is now. It hasn't changed. And I remember spring day, I think when we were seniors, you were out there. It was beautiful. I still remember you in your Sigma Psi shirt with the microphone. You were the DJ for spring day, back when spring days were fun and legal and everything. And Jim Cantore, who is on the road, he had to move because the computer model didn't get the forecast right. He sends us a greeting. I remember Jim in Dr. Muzzy's class. I think it was Calc 2. He would sit in the front. I would be in the back. And Muzzy would ask a very difficult calculus 2 equation derivation, and Jim would go, Muzz, I got that. And go up to the board and start doing the whole equation and everything. But great guy. He walks the walk, he talks the talk, and just the swagger is genuine, and the passion is real. And let's see. Who am I forgetting? Anybody? Is anybody? Mish is. We have a surprise guest, supposedly. If Mish shows up, I met her first. She came in after me at MUR, and I remember she come over to Greenview. Did she live in Greenview for a while? And I remember her at an easel drawing. She's an artist, and she went to Cornell. Otherwise, we all went to Linden State College. And so the one thing that I remember most from our early career is there was a storm that was maybe going out to sea, maybe not. And so we're all talking about it like we still do. And Tony Petrarca comes in with, how can you argue with 60,000 computations per second?
A trillion now.
Has that number changed?
No,
Tell us about it.
How
has the model changed in your career?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we would all be in the Weather Center, and back then the numerical model that was the premier model was the limited fine mesh, the LFM. And since those days, we've come a long way in terms of resolution and computer power speed. I mean, we would wait for the Difax charts to come in one at a time. It would take 30 minutes for those for those charts to come in, which, Tim, were in black and white. Now that the fact that model data is now in color, I was well ahead of my time.
I had nothing more fun than taking one of those black and whites, letting it dry, right? Yeah, putting it on the table or hanging it up and letting it dry. We had map walls in those days. And Then you get your colored pens and you start doing analysis,
Yeah.
hand analysis of surface charts. And then what was it? The LFM maybe had 2 or 4 panels of surface, humidity, upper. And for me, I always use red for warm front and lows, blue for cold fronts and highs, and green for wind direction. And one of the hardest part is getting the wind direction right. Russ Murley, what is the wind direction in Maine today? And what's it going to do over the next 48 hours? Russ is in central Maine.
No, I'm in western Maine, actually northwestern Maine in Dallas Plantation, which is, I can see Rangeley Lake out my window right now. So I might as well be in Rangeley. Right now I'm west-southwest at 15, 16 sustained. It's been gusting 25, 30 all day up here today, ahead of that Arctic front.
Which last time, 7 days ago, it looked like that wind was going to stay southwest all the way through Friday or Saturday.
That's
Has
right.
the model guidance changed at all?
It has a lot. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it looked like it was going to rain even up here. I'm at 2,016 feet in elevation. And a week ago, it looked like it was going to be a pretty good thaw. And now we're getting ready for 6 to 10 inches of snow up here, at least.
It's amazing. And I believe the week before Christmas, we had a similar sort of model battle where the Euro had a low pressure system going up to Buffalo and into Canada. And we were forecasting sort of that particular model was forecasting sort of a brown Christmas for us. But what did the wind do? The GFS was pretty adamant that the boundary was going to stay in southern New England. And you did not have a very warm Christmas, did you?
No, it was cold up here. We had snow on the ground. We had a white Christmas. We didn't have a lot of snow in December. We only had, I think, 14 or 15 inches up here, but certainly enough for a white Christmas. And it was pretty cold too.
And that was a 3 to 5 day forecast, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And
yep. You're right.
I think the GFS won on that. So for everybody, the Euro and the GFS, which people show on TV, which really bothers me, more on that later. We're forecasters, and Weir has a good handle on what our job really is. Weir, what's your take on model madness?
Well, let's start about 35 years ago when we were in college. We talked about the limited fine mesh model, but also important to note, models back then, they came in twice a day. Some of our mesoscale models run hourly now. So, between those twice a day, you just basically looked at weather observations, but you didn't have anything on your phone. You didn't have computers back then. So you ran, like Tony said, you ran to the Met Lab to see the facsimile machine coming in with the latest model run. And it, as I remember, you guys it only went out to, I think the LFM went out to 72 hours, maybe 84 hours. I mean, today our models go out to what?
380.
16 days?
Well, 384, but then you get the sort of tendency guidance.
Right. So a world of difference between, 35 years ago when we were students and graduated college to what we have available today.
Do you feel that perhaps we have succumbed to just staring at models and sort of losing our skill as meteorologists at all?
Absolutely. I think in some ways it could be argued we almost have too much data because we can go searching for what we want to see. Russ may elaborate on that, but you can get overwhelmed pretty easily. We have our 3 main models, right now, the GFS, the NAM, North American model. Actually, we look at the Canadian and the European model as well.
All right, I'm going to do a screen share while you talk. Russ, oh wait, I got to change this. How can I change it without you guys seeing it? I want to change to something without you seeing it. So, oh, come on. All right, I'm going to see what this is. What am I sharing? Does anybody see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
I'm Brady, weather.
Okay, so this is a weather.us site I like to go to.
Tim, you like this site a lot.
I do, because of what we can do on it. Now I've got Milton, Massachusetts, Blue Hill Observatory queued up here. And you can see Thursday, temperature goes up to the 40s, it's raining. And now the cool part of this is you can tell what model you're looking at. Look at all these choices of models. So the Euro on Friday is at 33, 34 degrees with a dew point at 32. And look at the wind. This is suspect. The wind is out of the northeast. And it's not that strong, but you got to remember, cold air is heavy air. Let's go to the barometer. look at the barometer goes down. Well, that's kind of an alarming signal, but I like how the barometer kind of flattens out on Friday morning. There's so much here, relative humidity. There's your precipitation. Look at the precipitation. Now, this is 2 inches of precipitation, all rain in Milton. Now, what you can do is instantly change your model to the GFS and see if the GFS and the Euro are getting along, which last night they seemed to be compatible. Now, this is dramatic. Same, forecast period. So there's Thursday night, temperature's 43. And look what happens when the sun comes up on Friday. It's 32.7. Then look what happens to the temperature during the day. By midday, it's 25. And you see the precipitation there. It's raining. And the rain doesn't change to snow until it's 19 degrees as the sun goes down. And then on Saturday morning, it's 12 in Milton. And then look at Sunday morning. We're down to 0.5 degrees. All the stuff that's on the ground and all this rain. This is 1.92 inches. There's the P-type right there. It doesn't really do a good job with icing. However, I can go to another a guidance that will show that. But you see the solid cloud cover. We have what, 1.5 inches of water in the snowpack now. So the snowpack is not ripe. It's dry, so it will absorb most of that. And the ground below it is freezing because it was freezing before last night's blizzard. So this is really a disaster setting up here if the GFS is right for Milton. But all you have to do is go north a little bit. Anyhow, I want to show you one more thing. If you go to the 10-day, sorry, I'm taking so much time here, but I'll show you how many models that we have to consider. And this is why I like this site so much, is because we can look at all the models at once right here. So here is your guidance. And the farther these lines are apart, the greater variability there is. So there's Sunday with the GFS low temperature of 1. And you got to kind of move them around to get the other numbers. But anyhow, let's go to Saturday. There they are, all below freezing. Now here's Friday. Let's look at this Friday with the GEM at 46 and then the GFS at 25. And these keep switching spots. But those are all the different models just on this one site right here we have to consider. And these are global models. These aren't even the local high resolution models. And I always go to the National Weather Service and then I just hit play on this. But whose turn is it to talk? All right. This is a very challenging forecast and I want to unshare, stop share. And Russ, you were on the radio in college. I thought I remembered you saying you were going to retire when you were 29. I think that might've been your goal at one point. How many radio stations do you have now and how many places?
I'm on the radio every day from Anchorage to the U.S. Virgin Islands, Florida.
That's work.
Saskatchewan, Michigan, all throughout the Northeast, Nantucket, Northern New England. Yeah, I don't know. I lost Newfoundland, St. John's, Newfoundland. A lot of radio stations we do. Yeah. Yeah. Lots.
And how do you discriminate what guidance you want to look at? Do you have a go-to model?
We, it's really depends on the storm. I mean, I take I use for my, day in, day out, radio station forecasting. Now, remember, you don't have to be as super detailed because these forecasts are blanketing larger areas. So you have to remember that you're covering, especially here in New England, you're covering the mountains, you're covering the valleys, you're covering a lot of geography. We're a little more pinpoint in places like Nantucket, where our audience is just there on Nantucket, although they do spill over to Martha's Vineyard and up onto the Cape. But day in, day out forecasting, when I'm preparing a forecast, over here, I'm looking at a cross section of the GFS. I got a cross section of the NAM, and I also look at meteograms from the GEM, the Euro, the GFS. And if I get in a pickle, then I'll start looking at different things. We also run our own in-house model, which we're starting to incorporate now on our into our day in, day out forecasting. And that's basically a blend of just about every model known to man. We don't have the Euro yet, although they just announced that they're releasing some of that data for free or very low cost. So we'll be incorporating that into our in-house model very soon. So
in-house model.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, that's what the gridded data has enabled people to do.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Are you doing
Yeah,
it yourself, Russ, or you have some help on that?
Yeah, we have some help on that. Yeah, we have our own server, which runs at a data center in Syracuse, New York. And we're just running it once a day. We run it off the 0Z 0Z package, and we have access to our own model, in-house model guidance by 3 a.m. every day. If everything goes well, we've been having some problems getting the GEFs ingested. So we're looking into some alternate sources, especially during these stormy periods when there's just a lot of resources requested from the government data centers. So we're looking at some alternates right now. Amazon's got a lot of stuff in the cloud that we're starting to draw down on. So that's what we use for tools for our day in, day out forecast. We're increasingly relying on our in-house model, which has got constant ongoing bias correction. So that's really helpful for point-specific forecasting.
Outstanding. A white dove just flew right over our window here, 19 stories above Salt Lake. Have I shared the view? Did I already do this? So, wow, Salt. That's a Mormon Tabernacle.
Wow.
Over there, the sun's out. We got 2 inches of snow last night, and it turns out we were going to go live from there. But when you rent a car here at Salt City,
Tim,
it has to have snow.
Geez, Tim, I'm in my kitchen.
I'm in my kitchen.
It looks like we have all right. Now, Russ just talked about the in-house modeling. I hosted 3 young people from Cornell that came all the way from Western New York to Cape Cod to chase this blizzard a couple days ago. And we all did this forecast of how low the barometer was going to go. It was really fun. These kids have come up with their own models too, and they are tremendous. So it's just amazing what the young people are doing and are so helpful in advancing the science. And speaking of Cornell, it looks like we have a special guest in the house. Are there any Cornell graduate meteorologists here that are unmuted?
Are you referring to me?
Hey, what's your name? Where you from, Annika?
Annika Chamian, that's right. I am about to turn 8 years old tomorrow.
So what's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Mish Michaels. I'm from the Boston area. I've been hanging out here for a while as a forecaster. I know all these crazy kids that are on the screen right here. Nice to be back in good company. I've been semi-retired for a while, taking care of family and my kids. But recently I got to step back into a snowstorm. It was a great one to come out of the semi-retirement for. The blizzard of 2022 this past weekend, I covered it for the Weather Channel. And just briefly, getting back into forecasting, it's hard when you're running around after little people. But I'm always trying to peek at the models. But when I do, I have used Weather Bell, which was started by Joe DeLeo. And I think it does a superb job of allowing you to navigate all the models and looking at the atmosphere from various slices, different directions. Joe has spent a lifetime serving this community, and he's such a great seasonal forecaster. And it's great to see him leverage all these operational models and have them in one place for all of us to use. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
It's been wonderful knowing Joe. And for anybody that doesn't know, Joe DeLeo went from Wisconsin to New Hampshire, and he started the weather program at Lyndon State. So people that graduated before us had Joe DeLeo education, and then Joe helped build the Weather Channel. And now he's at Weather Bell, and he was the first person I ever saw make a seasonal forecast. He calls himself a weather detective, and instead of using just pure guidance, he looks at the temperatures of the oceans, the hurricane tracks and patterns, whether the QBO is east or west, which I'm still trying to grip, the wind way up in the sky. There's a quasi-biennial oscillation. And he spends all the time working on that. And I talked to Joe in November, because I always got to get a grip on the snow forecast. Everyone wants to have an idea. And he said, that storm that we had on October 27th, it was the most severe non-winter storm I've seen on Cape Cod in so long. He said, often that will repeat in the winter. And sure enough, what just happened there off of Cape Cod, that storm could have been so much worse. Some of the guidance had that down the NAM down to 958 millibars with the sort of eye on the beach at Nantucket. And I gave a really grim forecast. I was alarmed back on Thursday. The Cornell kids came out. They went to Cape Cod because that's where they thought the worst was going to be. And perhaps in damage, it was the worst, but the heaviest snow turned into Pembroke, Stoughton area. There was 25 to 30. It was a drier snow. And the guidance was the GFS, I guess, won because there were sort of dual low pressure systems instead of 958, which is 28.5 on your barometer. It was a 975, which is more like 28.8 or 9 or something like that. And it was about 150 miles further to the east. So the GFS kind of won on that. You know, I saw Al Roker on the night before, and he was showing the Euro and the GFS. Whose turn is it? Tony, how do you feel about that?
Actually, can I just chime in here for a second?
Weir Lundstedt?
So I want to ask Mish, hi, it's been a long time. I wanted to ask you, since this most recent storm is in our, memory, it's fresh in our memory. You were in the right spot, ground zero, and we all know in these type of storms, these bands that set up. So what model would you say you look at? I know my favorite model for these mesoscale banding to take place. What model, because you were in the right spot. How did you pick that spot? You know what I mean?
My bosses picked that spot.
Smart bosses. Care to name names?
No, I can't divulge. I was on the ground, and so it's hard to be analyzing model data. At that point, I'm now casting and seeing where the heaviest bands are. I would assume the NAM would probably perform the best, given the nested grid. But yeah, we were at ground zero. We were snowing about 2 to 3 inches per hour, and the visibility was between less than a quarter of a mile and whiteout. And there's that enhancement, of course, of the wind whipping around the city buildings and funneling through the narrow streets and stuff. So
did you enjoy yourself? You looked really good. It was so fun watching
you. Thank you so much. It was a doozy. It was good. I mean, for me, I know it could have been worse, but there were some silver linings to the storm, I thought. It happened on a Saturday. There was no preceding snow cover, unlike what's coming up now, which is going to complicate matters and make things really messy.
Yeah.
And there weren't consecutive high tide cycles.
Right. The worst nor'easter is everyone always goes back to Blizzard 78. That was about 4 high tide. And this one was 2. And
exactly. And we weren't at astronomically high tide yet, which was coming up on.
It was a 1-day storm.
Yeah, February 1st. So.
And I think, the changes in our models over 35 years. I mean, one change in storms like this is, and I was going to say, I like to look at the 3-kilometer NAM. The composite reflectivity, we never had anything like that.
Totally.
And it kind of gives you a hint of if there is banding that's going to take place and where that might take place. It's not perfect, but it gives you a trend on, where those mesoscale bands may take place in these storms. So I think that's been a huge improvement in our model data over the years. And nothing's perfect. I mean,
well, it's interesting because the storm was actually about 150 miles further east of where the NAM thought it was going to be, at least 24 hours ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right.
But the snow still ended up being in Boston, Providence.
Point I wanted to make, Tim, I thought it was interesting how the models captured that secondary max that played out over the Route 2 corridor in Worcester, kind of like that north-south orientation. I thought that was really impressive. And there was that indication that there was going to be some dry air wrapped in on the northwest side of those persistent initial snow bands and allow for it to snow more through the mid part of the state. And I thought that was captured really well. The other thing that I think is of interest and could perhaps be like something to study is once again, we saw that sort of max zone in the suburbs just southwest of Boston, from Quincy to Sharon to Stoughton. If you like kind of draw that line, that was where the likely 30-inch max was. And there's something interesting that happens there. There's just some mesoscale forcing that happens, maybe topography or something like that. And we often see that as, a repetitive pattern, regardless of the banding.
I like to call it the blizzard triangle, the shape of the geography with the water. So maybe you have a kind of a north-northwest in Worcester, maybe a northeast in Boston, maybe even an east or southeast on Cape Cod. And the geography and the land and the
Localized convergence
the
zone.
density, and that happened in the blizzard of 78. And it's happened in many, many storms. And even last week, that shot over the bow with those ocean effect snow showers, which were much heavier in Tony's forecast area than they were and say some of ours. Cape Cod really didn't get those that time, which is so hard. Anyhow, I was going to ask Tony about how you feel about seeing or presenting a significant portion of your 2-minute or 3-minute on TV to the American model and the GFS model, and we're not sure which. How do you do that, Tony? How do you feel about that?
I say, and credit to both of those global models. If you remember, like almost 8 days before the blizzard, a lot of the global models were actually sniffing out some sort of significant cyclogenesis along the East Coast. And if you go to social media and a lot of people, discounting that, that the model is out to lunch, but every run of these global models, almost a week prior to this storm, we're sniffing something out. So credit to the global models as far as recognizing, the pattern conducive to cyclogenesis, along the coast that far out. And then as we get closer and closer, we're able to hone in on, where it's all going to set up. I think the biggest, battle that the global models have, we all know this, is that, initially 3-4 days out, we're trying to figure out where the jet streams are going to phase. So in other words, these storm tracks, north and south, really have to come together like a puzzle piece in order to figure out where the cyclogenesis is going to happen and where the storm is going to track. And we live in a we want to know now world. And there are times when we don't know when that phasing is going to happen until, sometimes 72 to 48 hours out. So I think the models did a reasonably good job in really hinting early in the forecast that something was going to brew. And then once we get closer and closer, Nam and Mish had talked about using these high resolution models to figure out where these intense snow bands are going to set up. Looking at frontogenesis on the Nam. We as broadcasters have to our availability a model that's developed by IBM and NCAR called Graph, which is another great tool that we use just prior to like a landfalling storm to try to figure out certain XYZs and things like that. So I think overall it was a well forecasted storm, only because the following day I didn't have one email. yelling at me.
Are we seeing Dorothy here and Dorothy's slippers?
Yes. Yep.
Now, what Tony was just talking about on the global models and what they're snipping out, I think this is one of the keys to maybe forecasting errors. Look at Dorothy's foot right on that point of the yellow brick road. And if she takes a step to the right, she's on the red brick road, right now. But if she follows the yellow brick road for 25 or 30 steps,
follow the yellow brick road.
She can jump onto the red brick road. But after she gets through Munchkinville here, see how they're getting farther and farther. And one of the models, sorry, this is kind of loud. Once she gets out of here, the yellow brick road and the red brick road, one's going to be off in Illinois and the other is going to be off in Michigan. Cue Jim Cantore, not quite yet. So I think that's the problem. We all start off on this, perfect spot, and we all initialize at the same point. But the mathematics, which are kind of beyond me, most of us, any kind of perturbation that it misses, and Weir made a good point to me personally when COVID hit and we had fewer flights going on, that we lost some data that was inputting. And so, I think that the GFS state studies the American model state study would last week, and the Euro kind of capitulated. But both the models, they've been doing sort of, no one model, I believe, has won over the last 30 days. The last 45 days have been tremendous. Russ, what's your opinion? Tony didn't answer the question I asked him. How do you feel about seeing the two different models on every forecast map?
Oh, okay. Get back to me on that.
Tony, do you want to answer now?
Yeah.
No.
Answer the question, Tones.
No, I think, at least in my job as a broadcast meteorologist, is you really need to convey honestly when there's a degree of uncertainty, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I remember Harvey. I forget where I was listening to Harvey Leonard at some seminar, saying the same thing, that sometimes there's a degree of uncertainty, and you got to communicate to the public that this is what we're looking at. You put various computer models on television, and to most viewers, it's you really got to be a good communicator. And I feel as though I would prefer to try to explain how we're using various computer models, but showing multiple spaghetti plots. I don't think it does the public any good as trying to convey what's going to happen in their backyard.
I like what WBZ did. I didn't watch all the stations, but
You're talking about the cone?
The cone. I thought that was a great idea. I'm like, why not?
And that's certainly displaying a degree of uncertainty and some honesty, 72 hours out.
And Russ, what's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thinking to this current event that's closing in on us now. I mean, operationally today, I forecast from Oklahoma City to St. John's, Newfoundland. Now we're going to discount them because they're out in the middle of nowhere, but there's an enormous amount of uncertainty with this particular storm. One thing we have to be aware of, and I think a lot of times because we're just kind of staring at the models and forgetting about what's actually going on here, is this Arctic air mass. So we've had some pretty impressive shots of Arctic air here in the last couple of weeks, and I bear witness to that up here at 2,000 feet in the mountains of northwestern Maine. We've had a lot of mornings down 10, 20 below zero. This air mass behind this system is very, very cold. Just the sheer amount of uncertainty, and I did relay that to a lot of my clients because of what's going on here. We get these series of lows coming along this Arctic boundary. Should that front shift 10 or 20 miles further south, it's going to make a big difference in snowfall totals in parts of northern New England. So I did convey that uncertainty. Going back to the models per se, I've had a lot of luck, at least in my operational areas in the last month or so with the GFS. We had storm calls with my staff leading up to last week's storm, discussing the various models. And, I reiterated that I was pretty pleased with the GFS performance on that particular storm. When we get closer in, obviously, we start hanging our hat on more of the mesoscale models. I've been more of a fan of the HER lately. But again, going to this upcoming event, there's still a lot of different, there's a lot of details that are going to make some big differences in actually what happens, what we end up with for precipitation in this upcoming event. But for now, I find that flipping and flopping back between models doesn't do myself or my clients any.
On the radio, you won't be showing it, obviously, but would you actually state the GFS or the Euro, or do you just say uncertainty? I totally agree with Tony with conveying uncertainty. I think that's a huge thing.
Sure. Yeah. When we can, a lot of our radio packages are we don't have an awful lot of time to discuss that. There's only a small portion of our stations where we actually have time to do a little bit of discussion. I can think of, 4 or 5 off the top of my head, but we, in our presentations, we don't have an awful lot of time to discuss things like that. When we're doing discussions on the radio, we kind of keep it to, thumbnail view of what's coming up, what's going to impact us in the big story with this, at least for my clients around here in the Northeast with this upcoming storm, is there's an Arctic front, there's a series of low pressure systems moving along it. There's going to be a broad area of overrunning, and we're going to see, and there is a high degree of uncertainty with this particular event.
I love watching the little waves of low pressure, and you can have Boston with a sort of an east wind, and then a tiny little wave goes over, and all of a sudden the wind's from the north. And the temperature goes down like 15 degrees, and it always exceeds what the guidance is showing. All right, Mish only has a few more minutes because she's got to take care of. Oh, by the way, Mish, before you leave, in case you have to leave before I get to you again, did Miss G see her shadow at the Drumlin Farm in Lexington today?
She did not see her shadow officially at 10 o'clock this morning, which means, of course, spring is coming soon. My kids are not happy about that. They're excited for the glacier in the backyard. We have a little snow tubing park in the back. So
okay.
They want 6 more weeks of winter, but Miss G is saying otherwise.
Well, I like honesty in a groundhog because I think that one in Pennsylvania is just out to lunch, stays out too late at night or something. And
It's
every year
140
sees a
years
shadow.
old. What kind of brain function does it have? I mean, really?
All right. So Mish, I wanted, while you're still here, share something, and it was sent in. One of the participants could not make it today because of model mayhem. He didn't end up in the spot that maybe was going to get the most significant precipitation. The man that lives out of a suitcase and was what you guys all called each other king in college. I don't know where that came from, but Weir and Tony and Jim Cantore were all in the same dorm, a suite.
Yeah.
And this would have, who knew where we were all going to be today? And the fact that we're all still professional meteorologists is great. And Jim, I mean, I think Russ has to work crazy hard, but at least he's there. Jim, out of a suitcase. Jim, what do you got to say? Can everyone hear this?
Greetings to all of my meteorology friends up in.
Can everyone hear that when I say it? Is that working?
Yep. You can hear him.
Good. All right. I'm going to continue.
England. We are in Detroit. We got sent to Detroit yesterday for snow coverage, and it's snowing. It just is not going to deliver like we thought it would. It's pretty hard to get a foot of snow here in Detroit.
Oh, you can hear him, but you can't see him, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I screwed that up. Starting over.
Tim, start over.
Starting
Screw that
over.
up.
Starting over.
Play the Wizard of Oz.
I know, and I wish I had that as a. Someday I'm gonna learn how to do all this stuff. Okay, we're gonna screen share. Shoot, sorry. Share. Google Chrome. Share. Oh, there's the Wizard of Oz again. Wrong one. Dorothy was good, but all right, here we go. I'm gonna get Jim up again, and I'm gonna see if I can make him full screen. Whoops, that didn't work, did it? Where'd he go? Jim, get back here. What'd I do to you? All right, I don't know if I can do full screen. I'm gonna try again. Here we go. Do that. And how is he getting bigger? Can you guys see him now? You see Jim?
I see your desktop.
Oh,
I see your
what?
I
You don't
see.
see-
I see our YouTube. I see Dorothy.
Shoot, what am I doing? All right, I gotta undo. What I'm sharing is the wrong share.
Weir, help him
sharing
out.
Chrome. I know
I'm
Weir's
sharing.
Weir's out of his seat. He's trying to help me. I'm gonna do it again.
It was a good clip.
Shoot, sorry guys. Okay, here we go. QuickTime player, share. Do we see Jim now?
That's
Yeah, I
it.
got
That's
him.
it. You
Yeah,
got
Can you
him.
see me
Got him.
now? Can you hear me now? It's, you know, this is one of the beauties. I think if you have a well-equipped TV station, they have people for this. You know, you got another guy pushing the buttons. I'm not usually the guy that's pushing the button. Anyhow, now let's hear from the Can Man.
Greetings to all of my meteorology friends up in New England. We are in Detroit. We got sent to Detroit yesterday for snow coverage, and it's snowing. It just is not going to deliver like we thought it would. It's pretty hard to get a foot of snow here in Detroit. We have it 13 times to 1880. Anyway, I digress. Listen, guys, as far as we've come with computer modeling, numerical modeling, high resolution modeling, it's still, you have to wait sometimes till the last minute so we get it right? Even for me, real life situation.
Even for me.
They are making me drive all the way to Columbus, Ohio to get into the snow tomorrow because I was standing in the rain, this morning, and I don't think they like seeing me in the rain. Anyway, so it's still an inexact science, but who the hell doesn't want to be in this game? Who the hell doesn't want to be in this game? Have fun, boys.
Man, that's a keeper, huh? Thank you, Jim. Let's see, how do I unshare? Let's see, I'm gonna go back here. Can you see me now? Did I unshare? What are you looking
Not
at,
yet.
Dorothy? You still looking at Dorothy?
No, we're still looking at Jimmy.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
All right, no problem. I'll figure this out before too long. I'm gonna stop share, and maybe TK's fat foreheads back in the image here. It's quite sunny now in Salt Lake, and I think that snow's gonna melt on the road so we can go skiing this afternoon. Anyhow, Mish, what'd you think of that? Who's that? Who are the people telling you guys where to report to? All right. How many people make those decisions?
Well, I'm new back to the Weather Channel. I worked there back in 1999 and 2000. So I'm going to be a Boston-based correspondent for them. And so I'm not in-house seeing the decision-making process happen, but I know there is a deep bench of, news people who determine where the locations are, what the schedules are for the various meteorologists, including Jim, who is a road warrior. I don't know how he does it. It's intense. I was on for 3 days and it is intense, and I'm glad for the respite, and he's back at it. It's amazing.
Yeah, you're right. A deep bench. And in my career, I sometimes had to kind of dial back what was being said before you got on the air. A lot of times a reporter, or not a reporter, maybe a producer or an anchor. Anchors are just going to basically read what they're told. And sometimes you get a little frustrated. And one of the things that's really frustrated me a little bit lately, like when that hurricane that was coming up last year, and they give the governor, 20 minutes, 30 minutes on the podium, and the governor starts giving his forecast. And you're watching and you're about to go on and you're like, well, with all due respect, Governor, it might not be that bad. You know what I mean? He closed Cape Cod one storm this summer, and it was 3 days before the weekend, and hurricane watch was probably up, and we had a hurricane warning. And which one was it? The one that came in and did the loop, Tony, which one was that came into Rhode Island? And it hit Rhode Island really hard.
Is it either Henri or
the H storm? Yes, Henri. And it cut through Connecticut, back, looped around New York City, came back over the exact same spot, westerly Rhode Island.
It made landfall twice in westerly. Yeah.
But not as a hurricane. We did not have a hurricane.
No.
We had close to hurricane conditions, and Cape Cod had 30 to 40 mile an hour winds. And so my friend and my brother, Mish knows, Ed, owns a restaurant on Cape Cod, and he was human. The season down there has been hit so hard with COVID and all this, and then to have, a guy like with such a podium telling everybody to not go to Cape Cod, and then the sun comes out. I know it's a real challenge, and that Henri was something else. So this is a segue a little bit for me, where I was going to talk about how in the olden days, like, how did Bob Copeland do it? How did Don Kent do it? With a surface analysis. And the hurricane of 38 and 54, both Don Kent and, well, Bob, I don't know about 38, but Bob worked for the Taunton newspaper, and he thought there was going to be a hurricane, Carol, I believe. And he wanted to put in the headlines, prepare for a hurricane, but he was kind of a lone person in that. And it didn't happen. But when the hurricane hit, he got a lot more respect. And in my experience, we've got certain rules, where a system comes on the West Coast, often it's going to exit off the East Coast at a similar latitude. A hurricane, and my father got 3 Category 3 hurricanes in his first 25 years of life, 38, 44, 54, and numerous other hurricanes. And he said, Tim, it's going to be steaming when it goes by North Carolina. In other words, a hurricane has to be going by Hatteras at kind of a due north trajectory and really moving. And all the ones that come up and sort of creep toward us, Henri was not a hurricane, but it hit, but it creeped in and it diminished to a tropical storm. And I'll never forget Edward in 1996, hurricane warning, but it was moving so slowly at Nantucket. Nantucket did end up with hurricane conditions, but the thing veered out. And so there's certain rules we can go by. Mish, I think you're about done your time schedule. Do you have anything to say about those things or anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, I was forecasting Hurricane Bob in 1991 up in New Hampshire. And I remember exactly that. It was a sprinter. And that was the main difference since then. It got caught up in a mid-latitude deep trough, and it accelerated up the East Coast in a bowling alley. And that's what helped to, to keep its integrity as it made its way to our latitude. I remember the day before that storm, there was a stationary weather boundary, and tropical moisture had entrained on that. And there was straight line wind damage. And that's when we had loss of life in New Hampshire the day prior to Hurricane Bob. And that was my first real big forecast coming out of college. And so I remember thinking, oh my God, this job is really serious. This is unbelievable. And, of course, I've been expecting a hurricane since then, and as we all have, but there haven't been any sprinters. So that's basically it.
Yeah, that storm didn't even exist 3 days ahead of time, did it? It was a tropical storm, and then it just ramped up over the Bahamas. And in that boundary you mentioned, it seems like there's kind of almost always a boundary. And a lot of times like that with that Henri, remember 24, 36 hours before it got in here, New York City had like a foot of rain or something crazy. And do you even call that? People shared a word for that. I can't remember, precursor or something like that, where the rain breaks out. And sort of that blizzard last week, it happened too, with the snow developing well ahead of the system. And so it's like the northern stream kind of senses what the southern stream is doing or something. And yeah, and so there was some tropical storms. I was in Providence with competing with Tony, no competition for Tony. And our strongest winds with Bob were after it went by from the northwest in Providence, when the upper level wind and the surface wind combined. And so Providence wasn't hit that hard. And you always get these storms of record of 38 level of water in Providence. And then you're always worried, are we going to do this again? So we haven't matched 38. We haven't matched 78, but look at the distance of time between those systems growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
And so extreme weather is not new, and maybe it's getting more extreme, but that's another story. Well, Mish, thank you very much for coming, and hello to the children, and happy birthday to Annika. And hopefully we'll see you down by the river.
Yeah, she was almost a Groundhog Day baby. It was so close. Missed it by 4 hours.
And so proud of the kids and Miss G, on her day, Miss
Yeah.
G Day.
Thank you. Thank you,
All
Tim.
right.
I appreciate the
All right.
invitation.
Thanks for coming.
Nice to see all you guys. Take care.
Let's see. We'll probably start taking questions pretty soon. Looks like the participant number is going up. It's 9:47, and we've got probably about halfway through. Let's see. You had a good analogy yesterday talking about children and everything, about how parents can tell their
weather models are guidance. So as meteorologists, we take that guidance and we kind of learn from that guidance. I also like to make the analogy that, our weather models, there will always be uncertainty. As meteorologists, I think we look at these weather models like a doctor would look at an X-ray machine. The X-ray machine is there to kind of help us diagnose and come up with what the symptoms may be. And I think we use the weather models with all their uncertainties to use our kind of experience to basically come up with a forecast, if you will. I think part of the fun of weather forecasting is there's never going to be 100% certainty. I think the longer you're forecasting in a given area, the better a weather forecaster you'll become, because you do understand the little mesoscale, if you will, climates. Like you were talking about the blizzard triangle of southeastern New England. So, from 35 years ago, our models went out 84 hours and there was a level of uncertainty, to today where they go out to 16 days. I mean, after 5 days, to be honest with you, I don't really trust anything.
Yeah, right.
You can get a good trend of what might be happening, a ridge in the west, trough in the east, but timing any systems past 5 days is still, it's a guessing game. And, talking about Don Kent, their forecasts back in the day were 2 to 3 days, really. Now I think on-air meteorologists are pressured to do 10-day forecasts.
I was pressured. I went to a third grade in Chatham about 2 weeks ago on a Friday. Have you noticed we get these Friday, Saturday systems? And the kids, it was, I drove through this mini blizzard in Plymouth. I went from Weymouth to Chatham, and we had that lake ocean effect snow that was focused in Pembroke, which it was kind of far inland. And that was Friday. It was a 2-day event. Anyhow, the visibility was down to a quarter of a mile right there. 4-mile zone, which at the end of the day, I went back and measured 4 inches of snow, and you could go 10 miles either way and have no snow on the ground. But anyhow, they asked me at the end, they were really fun. How they mostly wanted to go, how many blizzards have you seen? How many hurricanes? How many tornadoes? What's the worst weather you've ever seen? But then one kid goes, how far in the future can you make a forecast? And I said, well, I'm hoping for tomorrow. And he goes, what's it going to do tomorrow? And I said, snow.
Yeah.
That was, the ocean effect snow on Cape Cod, and it snowed not much. However, in Pembroke, it snowed 3 more inches to get them to 6 from that 2-day event where we were all focusing on this other ocean storm. I is whether they, we, or I. We are they. Went way out to sea, and that was kind of disappointing. But there's always something that happens that this inch of snow, 2 inches of snow in Salt Lake. I don't think anyone thought of it. Yet this is the first snow cover they've had in 28 days. That's what happens when weathermen come to town.
Well, I think our models have gotten a little better. Maybe Russ or Tony can elaborate on the smaller scale events. I think better at giving hints of snow squalls, for instance. I mean, we've gotten better at that over the years. Tony, I mean, the 3 kilometer NAM, the HER model, I mean, these composite reflectivity outputs. I mean, I think in my 35 years, I think that has been a significant improvement for at least accuracy within, 1 or 2 days. And also, the models being readily available on the internet. But Tony, any?
Yeah, I mean, especially, in where I'm forecasting, the ocean state and Narragansett Bay, Buzzards Bay. I mean, we don't have mountains in Rhode Island, but obviously we do have some elevation. And some of these high res models that we're using, including the one that's available to at least some of the broadcast industry, what's called Graph, which is a model developed from NCAR and through IBM. I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, like a local sea breeze on a hot summer day, and then firing up, a sea breeze front, and then in turn, just that random isolated thunderstorm that pops up, which may obviously is not picked up on a global model, but on a very mesoscale kind of a model where, a hot summer day all of a sudden turns into a torrential downpour just on a puff of wind coming in off Narragansett Bay, and the model picking up on that. In fact, just recently, the Graph model that we use, we had ocean effect snow on a southwest wind. So the wind is, yeah. I mean and the GFS and the European are not picking up on that kind of a mesoscale thing. But this high res model is depicting little pixels of what the radar may look like coming on shore, and the net result is a very frigid air mass on a wind that's now turning southwest. You now have an ocean effect in Narragansett, and you're getting little bits of flurries, which isn't a big deal, but all of a sudden you're just kind of you're putting moisture on the pavement, and now that pavement, and now that pavement already was cold, and now you got like a little glaze, and what was going to be just kind of a normal dry 4 o'clock in the morning is now an icy Newport Pell Bridge. So you're right, these high res mesoscale models, and in some cases the one we're using comes out every hour, it's updated. It's just incredible. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
And we've also changed expectations too. I remember when we were getting out of college and the LFM or whatever had, some snow coming in tomorrow. If it snowed the next day, you were pretty happy. And I believe society now expects you to say exactly what time and how much per hour and what hour it's going to end. And not with rainfall. Rainfall, they don't care if it's going to be 0.07 or 0.18. But in snowfall, that's the difference between plowing and not plowing, and exactly what time. Russ, can you give exact starting times for, would you say the Virgin Islands? What time that thunderstorm's going to hit at 3 o'clock? Yeah.
Not so much down there, Tim. That's a tough spot down there. The reason being is there's not a lot of observations down there. So if you don't have as much info going into your modeling, you're not going to get as good a resolution or as good of accuracy. With one of the things with the mesoscale models now is, we're getting a lot more data put into these models, and the more information you get put in, especially with the finer scale models. I mean, we've got some models with I think the Swiss is a kilometer resolution or 2 kilometers or something really silly like that. That's just incredible. So the better initial information you can get in, and the more you have, you're going to get much better results. We're at the point now with our own in-house model that we are taking observations, for example, from ski areas at different levels on the ski area, and that's going right into our model once a day. So that's helping us out tremendously, especially with the ongoing bias correction.
Wow.
In terms of start times and end
Why
times,
don't you use this upcoming system for just so you can give a forecast and explain at the same time?
this upcoming system, yeah, I was going to say that, you know, the start times are pretty critical for some of our clients. Start and stop times. I was just on the phone with some landscapers this week down in New Jersey, and you know, that those are the big ones. And you know, time is money, money is time. You know, these guys, they want to know exactly what time it's going to start, because they have crews that they like to be out there, you know, an hour after it starts, so they can start their treatment process. And in terms of end time, it's the same deal, especially if it's a long duration storm. They've got a crew of people out there. All of a sudden, they've got a crew of 40 or 50 or 60 guys between shoveling and driving snow plucks, snow trucks and skid steers and whatnot. That's a huge payroll. And if they can get them off before they go into overtime, you know, they're going to make sure that they can schedule their crews based on, you know, what time the meteorologists, in this case us, tell them the storm is going to start. I talked with a potential new client the other day down in New Jersey who is using a competitor, and the competitor was telling them the storm down there was going to stop at 6 p.m. We're telling our customers in Bergen County it was going to be all done at 1, and it was pretty much all done at 1 o'clock. So basically the guy signed up with us almost on the you know, those are the kind of things we have to deal with. But, you know, we have to be cognizant of what the people are doing with the information in our world, in the private meteorology world. But, you know, so we have to leverage the tools that are available to us to be able to give, you know, our clients exactly what they're looking for. And in all the years I've been doing private stuff, which is a lot of years, 30 plus years, you know, start and end times are still huge. And, you know, if you blow those, you're going to have unhappy customers for sure.
Well, who wants to take a stab at what's today? Wednesday, Groundhog Day. It's the same day over and over and over. The forecast for, say, Foster, Gloucester. Anybody? Foster, Gloucester? No school, all schools all day. Tony Petrarca.
So we're talking about the system coming up for Thursday, Friday, correct?
Yeah.
I'll know more by Saturday.
Don't you wish you could just say that?
That's always been my one-liner. That's how I kind of break the ice when people want to talk. And I want to warn you, if you want to talk to me about weather in public on the street, I'm going to talk your ear off. You know, first of all, you know, for Thursday here, you know, we're primarily, you know, we're rain. We're in the 40s. We're boosting up the temperature and the dew points. We're foggy. We've got storm drains that are obviously clogged with snow. So we're going to get some standing water, some slush. So Thursday is the rain day and the meltdown day. And I was mentioning on the air last night, I'm actually more concerned about the sleet and the freezing rain potential more so than snow on Friday. And I tell you what, I'd rather drive in 4 inches of snow than sleet and freezing rain. So that was the message I was trying to convey last night, that I'm more concerned about sleet, ice pellets, and then freezing rain. Granted, we do turn to snow on the tail end, but by that time, you know, a lot of your moisture is sweeping offshore. We do get to just some small snow accumulations on top of ice and sleet. So this is really high impact in terms of travel for Friday, especially the rapid temperature drop. There's no time to dry things up.
Cool, yeah, and the Arctic air coming in the backside, that's going to be pretty crazy. This has this potential to be one of our worst ice storms we've seen in a while. We haven't had a really bad one in a while. Weir, you want to try and take Southern New Hampshire on this?
Well, for those who may not know, I recently retired from the National Weather Service after about 35 years, and I still do a little forecasting for the city of Concord. And for this upcoming event, it's a timing thing, really. And again, from a model standpoint, as this system approaches using the global models, and then now the mesoscale models, it's really going to be a timing thing as far as for the road crews. You know, when does the transition start? Because it looks like it's going to start. Timing when it's going to change over to freezing rain and sleet, and then It's just now a matter of how long is it going to stay freezing rain and sleet until it turns to snow.
Yeah.
And based on the models, you know, you really have to go with what you've seen work for you recently. I mean, Russ has mentioned he likes the GFS model, and I agree with Russ right now. I mean, I think in the short and medium range, GFS model has done pretty well. I mean, they're not perfect. And then, you know, I do like to look at the 3 kilometer NAM model. And these models are readily available for everyone on the internet now. You also can become your own meteorologist too by looking at some of these models.
Hey, all right, you keep talking. I'm gonna do a screen share, and I'm gonna ask you to see what you see in a second.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, it's just a timing thing and duration thing, like Russ was saying. How long they're gonna have to plan for salting and then maybe plowing. And then it's just the timing of when's it gonna end. So it definitely looks almost maybe not quite a 24-hour event, maybe an 18-hour event, you know, starting sometime, you know, after midnight for Concord. And then
Does everybody see a bunch of numbers and letters?
Oh, Foos boy.
Boy.
yeah, that's old school right there.
So this is just this is like a cheat sheet for forecasting. You got BGR, Bangor, and you got Concord on there. And what you don't see up there is Caribou. And so anyhow, in the upper right's Caribou, and you see TTP, all these numbers and everything. And then underneath Caribou, it says 060, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, 60 hours. Okay. And then the numbers right next to that, 01, 01, 16, 14, 10, 04, 34, 10, 01. That's a very long duration event. Looks like about 0.6 melted. So then if we go down to, that's H2O, by the way. And then you go to Concord. So Weir, those numbers I've highlighted there. What does that say? That 47, 98, 99, 01.
If you go up, I'm pretty sure that's the T1 temperature. So it's now below freezing.
That's at 48 hours in Concord, New Hampshire.
So right after midnight to 12Z, Friday morning there, that's when the temperature drops below freezing in the lowest layers. And you can see that 01 at T. So you have a little elevated warm layer. So that's indication of that sleet or freezing rain potential. 547
thickness there. That's
Right.
usually a
And
rains.
everything goes below freezing.
Right. And we're still getting 0.58 plus 0.05, 0.61 of frozen on top of not that much. Now let's go to Boston.
And again, it's just a matter of, you know, is this model handling?
All right. And now I got Boston at 48 hours. What's that 54, 05, 06, 04 Weir?
Yeah, thickness, T1 temperature +5, T3 +6.
So what would that mean on the ground
That's
in Boston?
rain. Yeah, that's rain.
Rain and probably 40 something degrees. But the wind has just gone from 210 to 340. And watch what happens 6 hours later. Okay, so that's 7 a.m. Now let's go to 1 p.m. in Boston. This is pertinent. So this is the NAM, by the way. It's a cheat sheet for the NAM, Foos boy, whatever Tony called. That line right there, that makes you shiver a little bit right there, literally.
But this is what we were looking at 35 years ago. It's still the same today. Now it's in graphical format.
Oh, yeah, the NGM. That's how he developed
Right.
Windex, Wintertime Instability Index, when the models weren't so good. So anyhow, I'll tell you what 54 hours says on the NAM, because this is my favorite thing. 54 hours, 039 on the left. That's 0.4 inches of precipitation between 48 and 54 hours. That's in 6 hours. The 04 is the vertical velocity, and then the lifted index, and then the 17 is the pressure. The pressure is rising at that time, and the wind is now 360 at 14 knots, and the thickness is 547, and the T1, that's the lowest elevation on this chart, is -4 Celsius. So that's in the upper 20s, and there's a 0.02 at the top. So that's either sleet or rain, and with a temperature in the 20s. So that's on top of what we're getting. That's the Boston one. So this is a blast. And then if anybody wants to go for the snow up in the upper right, Burlington, Vermont, looks like Burlington, Vermont is starting in 24 hours as maybe some sleet, but then it's 0.18, 0.16, 0.35, 0.36, 0.02. That's 2, 4, 8, 12. That's close to 12 or 13 inches of snow in Burlington, Vermont. Which brings me to Mount Mansfield and Jay Peak. Mount Mansfield and Jay Peak have not had the greatest winter. I mean, it's not bad because there hasn't been a thaw. We didn't get a January thaw this year in the Green Mountains, which is awesome. December was not that great. But now this is going to go a whole month where 4 or 5 days ago, it looked like there could be a major thaw. Anyhow, that's my favorite go-to. And I can put in I see the chat lines going here. I appreciate you guys all kind of answering each other's questions. And I'll just give you a link to that Foose. There it is. And if you change the Foose 60 to 61, then you get the Boston. And if you want to read about it, you can go online, Decoding Foose NAM. It's a wealth of information. Tony, what'd you call me? Tony?
But to this day, you still go with that Foose text. When I just wanted to remind you that you can look at that all in some pretty colors on a map too.
I don't have Tony Petrarca's colored notebook.
Tim, I love the old school approach, and at the end of the day, it's the one that works.
The H2O is often overdone. Who made fun of me online last week? Is it still like it was in the 80s? You got to cut it in half or take. Anyhow, it forecast. It was pretty consistent with 1.8 for that blizzard around Boston of H2O, and sure enough, Blue Hill came in at 1.8. And does everyone trust that snowfall measurement at Logan? Am I changing subjects here? Does anyone measure the snow at Logan Airport? Where?
Well, with that wind, I don't know.
No. Is there a person
Yes, there is. Yeah.
at Logan?
Yeah, there's an official observer there. So with that wind, it's very tough to measure it. I will say, Russ, Tony, and Tim, to this day, after 35 years, one thing our models really, really still have a tough time handling is cold air damming in the Northeast.
Eroding the cold air
Amen.
too
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
Too soon. The warm. Yeah.
We earlier in the season, we got burned over here and back to back. I didn't learn my lesson.
Christmas?
It was actually earlier in December. We had a couple of events over here. They weren't huge events, but they were enough to cause some headaches. So the cold air damming was just brutal earlier in the
Russ,
season.
can you elaborate on what that means and it has to do with the geography of New England?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's particularly over here in Maine. The cold air will come draining down the coast, and a lot of times the coastal front will push inland east of Casco Bay. So you get places east of Bath, particularly east of Brunswick, up into the mid-coast area. You'll look at temperatures. Portsmouth isn't a great example all the time, but down the Maine Turnpike, southern end of the Maine Turnpike, places like Wells Agunquit would be in the upper 20s, and Rockland will be in the 40s. Classic cold air damming setup. They can be subtle sometimes. You've got to do your mesoscale analysis to catch them. And the problem is earlier in the season when we're not quite used to the winter weather forecasting. Remember, this is a completely different animal we're dealing with. Summer to winter in New England, and we got to get our sea legs underneath us earlier in the season. Sometimes you kind of forget about how powerful that cold air damming can be. And it can really bite you on the rear end if you're not paying attention. So,
you don't happen to remember the date? I could go to the map by any chance.
There were two events in early December. I want to say one was, I don't have my calendar up in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Very early December. I think it was a Thursday morning. Where again, it wasn't a widespread event, but surface temperatures were upper 20s and lower 30s, and we had some rain. The saving grace there for us was the ground temperatures were still fairly warm because it was earlier in the season. But again, the guidance, the models were, and sometimes when you've got all the models pushing temperatures up pretty quickly, you think you're going to have a good warm air advection setup, and we didn't. And Weir's absolutely right. The models still to this day really struggle with the cold air damming setups. We're starting to see some decent results of some of the mesoscale modeling picking up on. Yeah,
I got the Thursday, December 2nd. It's pretty subtle. There's not that much of a high in there, which makes it even harder.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can see the warm front there just south of Portland. And this was about midnight on the Wednesday night. So this might be the one you were thinking of, December 2nd. Then I can advance. There's the warm front.
Yep.
And there's
right. So you think you've got a surface warm front coming through. You think temperatures are going to jump on the other side, and it's kind of hard to see in there. But okay, so it looks like it's 31 in Portland still, even though the front's being analyzed to the north. Looks like it's still not an ob there from Sanford, but it finally did warm up, but it was pretty subtle, and it was pretty brutal from Portland north up through Lewiston, Auburn, and up towards the Augusta area, where the front didn't come through until a little later on. But the guidance was pushing that warmer air much further north, much faster, and it's those subtle little things that again, Weir pointed out that the models are still struggling with, even with these mesoscale models.
Yeah, for sure.
Wait.
And sea breezes are still tough although I think the mesoscale models have gotten better at indicating sea breezes along the coast.
They have, yeah, for sure.
And being able to pick them up on the Doppler radar now to verify
Yeah.
whether or not these
Absolutely.
boundaries are intersecting late in the afternoon, whereas the model didn't pick it up, but clearly the Doppler radar is seeing the sea breeze front before the model ever did.
Absolutely. And I worked as a aviation meteorologist for over 20 years for the Northeast, and Boston, pre-COVID was pretty busy, and a sea breeze did have a pretty big impact as far as runway configuration. So it was always an issue in the summertime. But I do think some of the mesoscale models now are better at are picking up at least the beginning and ending. And like Tony said, even our terminal Doppler radars can kind of hint at a wind shift that is occurring along the coast. So, and to that point too, I mean, in the summertime when there is instability, those sea breeze boundaries can initiate convection, and some of the mesoscale models, the composite reflectivity can give hints on, not exact placements, but whether or not there could be some convective activity, in the vicinity of the sea breeze boundaries during the summertime. So that definitely has improved. I mean, we had no mesoscale models 35 years ago, so times have definitely, in my opinion, gotten much better, but
Yeah, so have expectations.
yeah,
Expectations.
absolutely. So the expectations, and past 5 days, it's still a coin toss, if you ask me. But it all depends on the weather pattern too. Our models are, if we get stuck in a pattern for a while, you have a little higher confidence.
That is
Right,
not
Weir.
Tim. That is not North Conway, is it?
No, I think it's Jackson.
I actually, while we're here, I want to go actually touch Salt Lake because, I've only always read about it. And anyhow, I believe that is all lake effect that we're looking at. Maybe some orographic. It's just amazing how flat Salt Lake City is, and those mountains, they go up several thousand feet. And when we drove up to rocks dust, and you go up 1,000 feet, and then there's a foot of snow, and you go up 2,000 feet, and there was 2 feet of snow. So this is fascinating. The mesoscale right here out this window. And, it's probably less dramatic in New England, but, one of my gigs that I still have is doing JPeak blogs. So you can find my forecasts on JPeak. And that's a fascinating area. Very similar orographic, not much lake, although in the early season, Hudson Bay may play a role, where the plains of Canada are so flat. And then Jay just sticks up the first one. How does Jay keep getting most snow? And that's how orographic, and that's what you say when we live someplace or forecast one place for 30 years or so.
Yeah, and
So,
Tim, I pointed out before we started this that my contractor who's doing some work for me is a backcountry snowmobiler. I'm in the Rangeley Lakes area of Maine, and we have a very similar J peak effect over here. I've got a couple feet of snow on the ground, legitimately probably closer to 30 inches in the woods out my window here. But he reported he's got a camp up right on the Quebec border, and basically the eastern townships flat. Then you get to the Maine border, boom, you get to even some mountains as high as 4,000 feet along the border there, and it snows up there all the time. He told me yesterday. He said legitimately there's 4 to 6 feet of snow on the ground up there right now. And
they
I've
got any
only got
webcams?
no webcams up there, but that's the J effect over here in this part of Maine. It's crazy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. And A lot of times people say, what happens to Burke Mountain? Everyone want to tell them what we called it when a huge snowstorm would come through, and like maybe Wildcat or Sunday River would get 15, 20 inches of snow. And how much did we get in Lindenville?
Yeah, no, that, you know where that came from, Tim? My freshman year at Linden, we we had
What came from?
February hellhole.
Hello. Or the
Yeah.
shadow.
The shadow, the White Mountain shadow. Yeah, we had a storm in February 1983 that was absolutely throttling southern New England. And one of the upperclassmen said, yeah, here we are at Linden, high thin overcast, 20 below zero, smoke rising vertically, hellhole. That's where that came from.
You know, to that point, a recent storm we had, I want to say it was a couple of weeks ago. I will say, then again, getting back to the models, that I know the 3 kilometer NAM, some of the high resolution models actually do a better job at showing that lack of snow.
Yeah, it
in
was
the downslope region.
2 Mondays ago, that Monday system.
Yeah.
And sure enough, yeah, how'd you do on that one, Russ? Sunday River. I never remember that one big snowstorm we've had so far where everybody got the snow, except for, of course, Burke Mountain and Linden State.
Right.
Too. That was a perfect example.
Which
right?
storm was that?
It was like 2 Mondays ago. It was the only one storm we've had where everybody in ski country got the snow. I think it was a Monday.
Yes, it was a Monday. Yeah, I was skiing powder that day.
How'd Saddleback do? Have you been to Saddleback?
Yeah, almost every day. We ended up with, I think, 10 inches. We got a foot out of the last storm. Matter of fact, that's where I'm going when we wrap up here. So I got to go
to Alta.
I got
to Alta.
Yeah, you win.
No, I don't think so. Actually, you win.
No, we
do up that Monday storm.
We did okay with that one. You know where we struggle. A really tough place to forecast for is Franconia Notch. Cannon Mountain is
Cannon. There is a Cannon effect, you know.
There is a Cannon effect, yeah, and they get. It's one of the strangest things I've seen up there in my world of mountain meteorology and forecasting. A couple of winters ago, Sugarloaf and Sunday River were getting legitimately 60 to 70 mile an hour winds. Cannon at 4,000 feet, I was over there skiing, barely a breeze. It was a west to northwest flow. It was unbelievable. They just, and you guys know, because Cannon's very close to Linden, it's pretty much wide open north and west of Cannon, Franconia Notch. For the life of me, I still can't figure out why the winds don't blow that strong up there when we have a west to northwest flow. Sunday River was shut down that day. Everything on wind hold. Sugarloaf was shut down that day. There was a little tiny baroclinic zone just to the north of us over here in western Maine. So that's the only thing we could have attributed those really strong winds to. But the Cannon effect is real, and it's boggling. And I'm actually going to go ski with the general manager of Cannon this afternoon up here at Saddleback. Yeah.
And Russ, you know what wing shuts that mountain down, though?
What's that?
A south.
That's south.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
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 Anyhow, I've got queued up that one, the hellhole effect storm we had a few weeks ago. So there's the Concord rain, and you see the heavy snow in Montpelier. The included front goes by. There is heavy snow up in Maine. Anyhow, that was the best storm we've had so far this season.
Yeah, classic shadowing. Classic shadowing.
Yeah, we are inviting ourselves up to your place to go to Saddleback when we get back from after we go to Tahoe. We're going to Tahoe next week. It's not going to snow there either.
No, they've had their snow.
We know that because of the model, and it's the certain weather pattern that's stuck in place.
Last week, when it looked like it was going to rain in New England all the way up to the Canadian border, I went to the 10-day GFS snowfall graphic at Pivotal Weather. By the way, yeah, there's so many. Pivotal is a free one that you guys can look at. Tropical tidbits. There's so many weather.us, NCEP. Anyhow, the GFS had a 10-day snowfall with 2 bullseyes of 20 plus over Park City and over Tahoe, and they just gone. It's model mayhem, meteorological madness. It's a discussion. No yelling, Tim. I really appreciate Rob. Rob, you're hooking us up and answering a lot of these questions and sharing links. I've been sharing the links in the chat of where my surface maps are coming from. So I think I'm really, flattered. Everyone misses me on TV, and I kind of miss myself on TV too a little bit. But I tell you, I don't know how I had time for work, because if you go to my Twitter page, Surf Ski Weather, you'll see that I'm tweeting I haven't stopped forecasting. I have a YouTube station. I'm on Jay, but TV isn't as fun as it used to be. The demands are so much greater now with, it was 6 and 11 when we were young. It was a 6 and 11 and it wasn't overwhelming news and alarm all the time. And then, so somebody said, why don't we start our news at 5:30? Oh, why don't we do a newscast at 10? Oh, why don't we start our news at 5? And then NECN came along and everybody wanted to be NECN. So all of a sudden channel 7's going on at 4 and every other station copied. So where you used to have Oprah and whatever, Phil Donahue on at 4 and 5 o'clock. Now it's the news, the news, the news, the news, the news, the news. And how many times can you say mostly sunny, slight chance of a flurry or Block Island or whatever? I mean, fortunately, lately, the weather's been too busy, but unfortunately, when you are really up against it in a TV newsroom and you have to jam out the forecast graphics and the forecasts, everybody needs their own personal forecasts. So Russ, you probably have it made sitting there. At least no one's kind of, tapping on your shoulder every second. And then the weather hits are every, what, Tony, 7 minutes or something like that? Like literally, you've got other things, needs, food, bathroom, whatever. You can't squeeze in.
So I mean, with broadcast meteorology, there's not. I'll get to that later. Obviously, you do have time constraints, so you have to allot your time, very very carefully with, analyzing model data. I mean, you wear multiple hats. I'm a meteorologist, but I'm also a graphic artist, and that being a broadcast meteorologist, you have to convey the story and the forecast through graphics, which a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them are handmade. Data is constantly coming in and you're getting closer and closer to news time. And even throughout the newscast, you're analyzing data and updating maps. So it can be stressful and fun at the same time.
When the camera goes on and you get to, I like it when the camera's on, and I still have dreams. You guys still have dreams like from college? Like I still have them. Last night I was having a dream that they said you have to go live at noon on Saturday. And it was a Saturday morning, and a friend of mine in my ear, my IFB is going, Tim, set up your shot. And I literally, in my dream, told myself, I don't work there anymore. This is a dream. And I just walked down and took a picture of the water. But I still have these dreams. You have these dreams like, oh, I'm supposed to be on the air. I'm in Utah, and I didn't tell him I wasn't coming home. I'm not coming home. So the weather is just ever present. Even when you're falling asleep, you wake up. What's the first thing you do? You start worrying about, did I get the forecast right? You look out the window, Tony, and you're like, if you had forecast snow and the water, the ground is wet or something, you're like, oh no.
I would after the 11 o'clock news, I would go home, and if there was a storm, and forecasting a storm, and then I had that dream where you wake up and you draw the shade up in the window. there's nothing on the ground. It's like, what happened? That's my meteorological nightmare.
There's so many metaphors in that movie, The Wizard of Oz, with the tornado and everything, and the cow that flies by, and then at the very end when she wakes up, it was a dream. You were in my dream, and you were in my dream, and you were in my dream. And I love the metaphors in that movie, and of course the weather part where the dog Toto, the lady stole Toto, and she had to go out in the tornado looking for her dog. It was heart-wrenching. It's 10:23. And I'm getting tired of talking, but believe that or not, there's a lot of. Oh yeah, where we are, we're at MST. You guys are in EST. So anyhow, there's a bunch of questions in here, and I thank you guys kind of moderating yourselves here. Eric's in there helping, and Dave, and let's see, Mark, to everyone. Do the models take into consideration the prescient warm ground temperatures and ice accumulations? I don't know that they do that. I mean, I don't think ground temperatures, that's where you may want to look at the models that give you not just accumulations, but how much snow is on the ground. And that's usually a selection. So it must take it into account, at least the ambient temperature.
I mean, the HERB model has a bunch of stuff that it may take into account that.
In a marginal
The
storm,
mesoscale model.
you don't want to especially go to those inflated Kuchera. I don't even know what that means. I never look at it. The 10-to-1s, that's kind of how I operate. But then if it's a marginal system where it's kind of light and it's 34 degrees, you might want to look at the selection that says how much snow is on the ground. Let's see. Russ, do you think, Russ is gone. Russ, do you think that Bergen and Passaic counties in New Jersey is going to have any big issues Friday morning with icing? Sorry, he's not here. Tim, he's got radio stations. Tim, how come you are not on NECN anymore? I was the first person hired at NECN, and I was the last original. September 30th was my last day. Thank you. You are the best. Well, I think I'm with the best here. Notice this cold air damming all the time, being in the Connecticut River Valley. Models usually underplay, especially the Connecticut River Valley. How about that ice situation like 3 weeks ago? Even in Rhode Island, right, Tony? The temperature at the New Haven was like 46 and Hartford was like 26.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that we're talking about cold air that's so shallow, is the model.
Does everyone understand what we're talking about? Cold air is more dense than warm air. So unless you have a lot of wind and you have a long night with a high barometer, it's usually a very high pressure system. The cold air acts as sort of almost like a mountain a little bit, and the warmer air is a little bit less dense and it goes over the top. So if you were up at Worcester Airport, it can be 38, while down in Sturbridge, it can be 28. And that's also a dynamic that makes precipitation. Anytime you've got the warm air going over, and that's why you get these bursts of snow in front of a warm front a lot of times. So there's all these different boundaries, and some of them come orographically and others just due to the nature. You always want to watch your barometer. And the hardest thing about the forecast is getting the wind direction correct, especially in Boston, Cape Cod. Cape Cod, that's where I grew up. It's shaped like an arm. You can have wind from the north on the north side, south from the south side, east on the east side. There's this thing called a Route 6 cloud on a sort of a sea breeze day, because the wind converges from the north and south and you get a cloud right over Route 6. And that's where I grew up. I grew up underneath the Route 6 cloud. Does that explain a lot? Let's see what else. January 4 was a big problem, cold air damming. Yep. So it's about the end here.
Something's moving behind Russ. What's that moving?
Russ, what do you got going on back there? You get some workers?
That would be dogs. We have 3 little dogs, a terrier, the corgi's over there
Awesome.
relaxing. She's the weather dog. And I don't know where the Maltese poodle is. Joe D, I think, has got a Maltese poodle. So I call it my Joe DeLeo dog.
Yeah, he had 2 of them, didn't he?
Yeah.
Do you folks ever foresee a day when humans will be able to sample every 500-foot point across Earth's surface and every 500 feet above surface to tropopause on every 5-minute period? This thing with 5 from Dave. And I would say, well, and then get to 100% accuracy. I don't know about the 100% accuracy, but I think the resolution is going to continue to improve and improve and improve, especially as we put more satellites up, as long as they don't crash into each other.
I mean, 35 years ago, who would have thought of the internet? I mean,
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, look at the resolution. I don't know if anyone has actually done any hands-on with the Swiss meso model. It blows my mind. It's really good. And
where did you get? Is that Jorg's team? Jorg Kockelman's team?
What's
He
that?
developed a high-res model, and he hired this group of people from Zurich, these scientists, and he made up this wicked high-resolution model. He was actually running it for Boston for a while.
Yeah, I don't know where it's available. I think Ryan Maui had it available on his site for a brief period of time, and I thought it was
You can
gonna be a
find his
subscription.
models on weather.us in the models section.
Right. But I mean, as the computers get faster, the resolution is going to get higher. I don't know about every 500 feet, but who knows? I mean, 100 years down the road.
Well, we surely
we'll-
don't want the models to get 100%. You know what I
At least
mean?
not for another 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
The upper-
Some of us are retiring where I don't have to worry about it.
All right. Well, it looks like we're done with the questions. This has really been fun, and Weir and I are headed out to the mountain, and Tony and Weir and I, we all came here for Weir's birthday not too long ago, and Jim, we all still are in communication, and we will throw ideas across one another. And it's just to think that when we were in college, we were 20, and now kind of we're pushing 60.
Don't say that.
Well, there's a lot of experience in this room, and we're all still really good friends. So weather is sort of almost like a fraternity, and whatever, brothers and sisters. And the Blue Hill Observatory is just a place that Charlie Orloff, the director now, he was the principal at the school near me, was friends with my mother. So sort of like dreams can come true. If anybody, young people in here, want to be meteorologists, we host this course in the summertime called Launch Your Weather Career. It's going to be in August this summer. And we really encourage you to come to Blue Hill. We're redoing the building right now. And we'd like to see you in person. We appreciate any support you can give us with any donations or, this thank you. What was that? Does that mean the time's over?
That was my alarm.
Belzikian family for donating the funds to help fund these webinars and support everybody. We're really grateful for all the supporters, and Cheryl Cummings, who helped really put this together, and Don McCaslin, Charlie, and everybody. Matt, measuring the snow out there in that blizzard. Great job, Matt. It really is a team. And anytime somebody says, here's my forecast, or I think this, or I think that, I usually am a little skeptical, because it's really what we're doing together.
Yeah.
Here's our forecast. Here's what we think, no man can be a meteorologist without everything what we're talking about and showing here, and the models. And these webinars are going to continue. And I guess I'm the de facto host, and everyone's invited to come. Every one of them.
Hey Tim, let's try to do this again during the hurricane season. Let's think ahead. It'd be a lot of fun.
Would that be post or pre or during hurricane?
I don't know, maybe come midsummer, when things are really starting to heat up. Maybe we can do this again.
Tony, sold. I think he just volunteered all of us too. Maybe we get Joe DeLeo in on one of them, or one of the hurricane people. Yeah, and we stand on all those guys' shoulders, DeLeo and William Gray and everybody. And I know Bob Thompson, the former director at NWS Boston, he's on the Blue Hill board with us now, and just great source here. And we've got a brand new website too, which you probably noticed, and so much data. And we're expanding our web cameras too. All right. Cheryl, you got anything to say? We're all done here.
Tim, it's your show to close out. I just wanted to let everybody know there's an article in the Globe today talking about the record-breaking storm over the weekend. So you might want to take a look at that. Our amazing weather observer, Matt Douglas, is interviewed, and there's some comments by Charlie Orloff, our executive director, as well. We thank you all, each and every one of you, for participating. Thank you so much.
Thanks for putting it together, Cheryl. Great to see you guys, Russ, Tony. We're gonna go up to Saddleback, Tony, get the last week of February off.
Yeah, my new office is almost ready, so that's extra sleeping quarters too.
And we can all do our forecasts.
Right, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good to get together. Love you guys.
All right, thanks, buddy. Thanks everybody for joining.
You guys.
Take care.